In Psalm 146, I want to read 2 verses there. Maybe in fact 3. Happy is he that the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in the Lord his God, who made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that therein is, who keepeth truth forever, but seeketh justice for the oppressed, who giveth food to the hungry. I think I might have said before that if I could get you as a congregation to appreciate who God is, his power, and to know him personally, and to live in light of that, then my job is done. But that's really the key, knowing God and living as someone who knows God. And so our focus in this series is on trusting God, leaning on God. That's how we can be happy. And we saw last week that God is the creator. He is the powerful God. Nothing is too hard for God, and no one is bigger than God. He's also the faithful God. He keeps every promise he has made, and is always there for us. Today, we look at God as the defender and the provider. This is a world of injustice. I remember in my boyhood, when maybe some people would gang up on somebody else to beat them up, we'd cry advantage. That's unfair. God looks out for the people who are oppressed. In Exodus 22, verse 21 and 22, he speaks out there for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. The stranger has no land. Think of a society that's agricultural, and you have no land, you have no wealth. He was often a refugee in that country. The fatherless has no provider or protector. The father takes care of the children. I remember reading about a young lady who was abused sexually by her stepfather. And she says this: I didn't have a father to stand up for me, no one to defend me. So God is looking out for the fatherless. The widow has no provider. In that culture, if you are a widow, there was no one to take care of you. And I remember, this is a modern day case now. I was in Germany, and a lady from Kenya shared that when her husband died, his family came to the house and took out everything she had in her house. The Lord came in for her, and she had a ministry to widows in her country. So God looks out for the disadvantaged. So if you're here today and you feel disadvantaged, understand it. God looks out for you. But the key is always to know him and understand that you are not alone in your situation. And if you really understand that God is a defender of disadvantage, there are at least 3 benefits. 1, it prevents us from being blown away when people appear to be getting away with evil. Habakkuk 1 from verse 2 onwards, that's the problem. Habakkuk says, God, what is happening here? There's injustice. All around there's oppression. God, what are you doing about it? And God says, hold on, I have a plan. I'm going to send the Babylonians to fix this. You see, God is looking on, and in time, he will judge evil. The longest rope has an end. God is not mocked. What a man sows, he'll reap. Verse 6, verse 7. There's a king called Ahab who did much evil. 1 Kings 21, for example, tells us that he plotted to get a man's vineyard, had him accused falsely of blasphemy. The man was stoned to death, and Ahab possessed the vineyard. But God pronounced judgment on Ahab. But Ahab is smart. He goes into battle and he is disguised, looking ordinary. The enemy went after the other king, but after a while they turned back. It was not the king they were seeking. But in this battle, 1 Kings 22, verse 34, a soldier takes a random shot with a bow. And where does the arrow go? Straight to Ahab. Not just that. It struck him where the armor joined, weakest part. Don't tell me. Accident? That was the hand of God. God will judge evil in his own time. And if you understand that, you aren't blown away when evil appears to be winning. Listen, beloved. It is the end that counts. You know I love cricket. And we call a match India against Australia, 2001. India was supposed to follow on in that match. You would think when they're losing, you're following on. They went on to make a big score. You know what happened in the end? Australia lost that match. It is the end that counts. God is going to judge in his own time. So just hold on. If right now it looks as if, evil is winning, just hang on. God is going to do his work in his own time. The second thing is this. When you understand God is the defender of the oppressed, you are released from the desire to seek revenge. I'm sure all of us in this room can find one person who has hurt us badly. You may be thinking, I want revenge. Here's what the word says. God is saying, vengeance is mine, I will repay. God will take vengeance. It's not for us to take our own vengeance. And when you understand that God is to take vengeance, we are freed up to live. Listen, beloved, bitterness is a heavy load. When we place those who hurt us in God's hands, we are free of that load. I'll tell you something else. Bitterness will hurt us more than the people we are bitter against. So hold on now. If every time I see you, my blood boils, what happens? My pressure goes up. And you go along merrily, you don't care a thing about me. So when you understand that God is the one to take vengeance, we leave it in God's hand, and in his own time, God is going to work. In the same book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 4, with the thought of God intervening. He said, the vision is for an appointed time. In the end, he will speak and not lie. Then he says, wait for it. Though it tarry or appears to be taken long, it will surely come. It will not tarry. What God is saying here? That therefore it will come. And those who have hurt you, in God's time, he will judge them. You don't take that on. God defends his own. There's one more benefit. It cautions us against plotting evil against others. The Bible says, he who digs a pit shall fall into it. Sometimes you wish you had to preach certain things in the church, but I think our sister helped me this morning a little bit in her testimony. For you see, the human heart can do anything. The word says it's what? Deceitful and yes. Now think about David for a moment. He gets a man's wife pregnant and decides to work his scheme, to get this thing fixed up in a way that might look like it's really man's child. So he brings the man home from battle. The man doesn't belong to his wife. David tries everything. The man doesn't do what he wants. So what does David do? Gives him a letter to carry to Joab to say, put them in the hottest part of the battle and run away from him. Think about it for a moment. Set up a man to be killed. David paid for that there, God had said, you're going to pay for this, David. His son rebelled against him. He had to run for his life. And Joab lost all respect for David. I think you know why. Joab could count, right? 2 to make 4. He set a man to be killed. Next thing what happens? Takes a man's wife. So Joab put all that together. He had no respect for David. So David says to Joab, 2 Samuel 18, verse 5. He says to Joab, deal gently with the young man for my sake. Well, when Joab found Absalom hanging in the tree, he just killed him. He had no mercy, no respect for David. And later on, when David is mourning for Absalom, Joab, in a sense, cussed him out. He said, you wish you had died instead of, your son and so on. So he had no respect for David because he knew what had happened. So you see, when you plot against somebody, ultimately you are going to lose. Leave vengeance to God. Don't come up with your own scheme to get your own vengeance. That's what I'm saying. You're going to lose when they plot against people. You remember Haman, who built the gallows for Mordecai? Who was hanging it? Same Haman. So just allow God to do what he does best. But to be present. And whatever you're facing now, you might think, oh, all is lost. If God is your God, he will come in for you in his own time. He is a defender of the oppressed. Now, if you think about what's happening in this land, and we think about the stuff to be distributed, we trust God to confound those who have the wrong plans and get the stuff where it should go. That's the God we serve. He defends the oppressed. The second thing we have in the text we read, he is a provider. He gives food to the hungry. And we all know food is basic to our survival. So we pray, give us this day our daily bread. And among the Jews in the Lord's time, 60% of what they ate was bread. And I remember when I was in Romania in 2003, every single meal we had, there was bread on the table. So I came to understand daily bread in Romania. We need bread for survival. And listen, when you see a threat to your survival, you eat anything you get to eat. So some eat frogs, some eat rats, they eat bats, and sometimes human flesh. The book called Alive, if you've ever read that book, about a crash in the Andes, where people survive by eating the flesh of those who had died. I mean, it sounds gruesome, right? But it's what we'll do when we want to survive. God is saying, listen, I will feed the hungry. Look to me. Somebody sharing yesterday, and I think it's mentioned by Jennifer, apart from what the hurricane did, some people are just poor, indigent. They just don't have anything, And we need to recognize that's what's happening in this land. But people are looking in the wrong place to get their needs met. we need to look to God as the provider. He fed Israel with manna in the desert. You know, this place has no food. And every day they could go out and get the manna. God fed his people, and he'll feed us too today. We've got to trust him. He used ravens, 1 Kings 17, to feed Elijah. Every day the birds came and brought the food to Elijah. Day by day, he was fed by the birds. And later on, a widow, somebody who didn't have anything, God used to feed his servant. All this is saying to us, you know, is this. We must depend on God to provide for us. We look to him always to provide for us. He feeds the hungry. Now, if we understand this, there are benefits. First of all, we don't depend on man. Verse 20 Psalm we read says, put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man in whom there is no help. You see, if I see God as provider, I focus on him and not on the instrument he uses to provide for me. Some of you may know that for the last 20-something years, I have not had a salary from anybody. But I am still here standing. I live a normal life still. I don't use tricks and gimmicks to get money. But God has provided. And listen, some person who support me have died, so I can't get the money again. They died. You understand? Some have had different changes in their lives that they can't support anymore. So that's gone. But you know what? God always provides. And the point is this, that I focus on God and not on the persons God uses to meet my needs. He is my provider. And you see, when I understand he provides for me, no one can control me with kindness. What do I mean by that? Some people are nice to you. They give you everything you want. Well, that's how they control you, because they figure once, you know, they don't give any more, you're going to then feel you can't function. So why do you think some criminals can get away in some communities? They take care of the kids. So the people love them. In fact, some people cry when they're arrested. You know what I'm saying? That's how the thing works. Because they're looking to these people to provide for them. But if God is my provider, and you offer me something, and there's strings attached, I say, no, thank you. Happened to me once, you know. A certain church offered me some money. And I sent it back. And they say, you don't want peace. I wanted peace. I didn't want to be controlled. So you give me a gift and then I must know do what you want. No. I am looking to God to provide for me. You see, this also means that I don't play up to people to get support. A brother from Canada came to here some years ago, John McDonough. Some of you might remember that name. And he was saying to me to encourage me. He said, there are two words in the Greek for servant. One is doulos, which is like a slave, one person. One is diakonos, which gives you deacon. You're just working among people. And he said, listen, you are God's doulos. And among the people, you are diakonos. But they might want to become their doulos. You got to reject that. You are not the doulos of the people. You work among them as diakonos, but you are doulos to God only. Now, if you understand that, you know, nobody can control you. I recall once somebody had said to me, you know, when I was going through some problems, if it's okay with that brother, it's going to be okay. So I said to him, I said, you want to tell me I got to spend my life pleasing this brother? I want to please God. Always you want to please God. So you look to God. So if that person someone cuts you off, God hasn't cut you off. You are looking to God and God alone. Also, when you see God as a provider, you don't act out of desperation. Some persons do things that they know to be wrong or unhealthy. You know why? Because they believe they have no choice. They say, I have to do it. Some years ago, a bullfighter was killed on live TV. First I saw anybody die like that. Because in the movies, they die, but you know they're dead, right? But I saw this thing live on TV. The bull, clawed him in the side. And afterwards, they're asking people, why do you go into this thing that is so dangerous? You can be gored to death. You know what one said? The gore of hunger is stronger. So I believe I have no choice but to go and become a bullfighter. And that's how some people operate in them. They believe they got to push drugs to survive. They got to do some shady business to survive. They got to go and speak for a man to survive. Somebody told me at one committee I was doing some work. He said, but I have to do this. If I don't do this, how will I live? So these are the beliefs we have, that we must do these things or we will not get anything to eat. But if we believe that God provides, we say no to these things. Let me give you a verse. Psalm 82 verse 11. What's it about God? No good thing will he withhold to those who walk upright. Do you believe this? If you believe this, then you live that and trust him. God will supply all of our needs. That's what I'm saying. You got to know God and believe that. So nobody can exploit you to get a little work because you're trusting God. He is provider. The third thing is this. If I see God as provider, it develops in me a spirit of gratitude. 1 Chronicles 29:14. Hear what David says. He says, Lord, all things come from you. Everything comes from God. So we are grateful to God for whatever he has given to us. For every good gift is from above. It comes down from God. So we are thankful to God that we have jobs, that we can earn money. And I'm happy that Dwayne, in his prayer, made the point. And I'm going to make the point again for us. I hear it very often among us. That's how maybe we grew up. There is no sacred and secular. Your whole life belongs to God. I didn't hear the amen, but that's all right. Now, everything you're doing. So don't say, oh, I work in an insurance company. Whatever work you're doing, you are a Christian. You do that as unto God. So that, God provides for you the same way. Just that's the way it works in your case. So you give thanks, you have a job, you can earn money. What else? You give thanks, you have strength, you can go to work. God had told Israel earlier on, don't start saying when you go to the land and you build house and all that, you start saying it's my right hand. God give you the strength you need to get wealth. So again, everything comes from God. And if you see that, you give thanks to God. Here's what Paul asks the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 4, verse 7. What do you have? You have received. If you received it, so why are you boasting? All has come from God. And so I am thankful to God for what he has given to me. So I work hard and earn money. I must still thank God. God gave me a job and the strength I need to work. So all of us have to thank God for what he has given us. And when you are a thankful person, you're a happy person. God is provider. He takes care of his own. So the way to be happy is to lean on God, to trust him completely. He is defender of the oppressed. So we aren't going away when evil appears to be winning. What people sow, they're going to reap. The road might be long, it has an end. We don't feel we must take revenge. Let go of bitterness. You only hurt yourself when you hold bitterness. And don't ever think a moment of cutting against somebody else. The pit you dig, you're going to drop in it. God is the provider. He feeds the hungry. So we don't depend on people. They're only instruments God may use to bless us. Look beyond the instrument and see God. We don't act out of desperation. Say, I have to do this. You don't have to do anything except trust God. And we live as thankful people. For all that we have has come from God. The job you have, the strength you have, they have come from God. So we thank him for providing for us. We live like that. We are happy people. I trust that all of us in this room will understand that there's only one God. And as we learn to relate to him correctly, as we put our trust in him, that's how we live happy and productive lives. Amen.